Hi, I'm Amanda. I make these videos as a way of connecting over subjects I care about and as a way of practicing talking during this isolated garden hermit stage of life I'm in. And today I wanted to talk about plant spirits that might serve as great companions during this work of pride that I'm doing as part of Witch's Black Lent. First of all, I think it's really important to clarify that I'm a gardener. I'm not a medicinal herbalist. I'm not specialized in folklore, nor primarily a folkloric practitioner. My practice with plants starts with having an engaged person-to-person experience with the plant. That came with having decided to not just grow grass on my lawn in my backyard, but to create an environment with diverse plants and to put more plants where there weren't any previously. I don't look at plants as something that are there for me to just use. And I tend to disagree with practitioners who think you can have a complete relationship with a plant just by working with or transforming like dried herbal materia or with the idea of a plant. And that's a subject for a lot of, that can be debated or like hotly disagreed upon. And yeah, I have strong opinions on this one. And I need to be clear about them before we continue. Because of course, everyone's going to have an opinion or two or three. And that's a lot to put out there. But with all that said and done, there are 4 types of plants that I think make really interesting spirit companions in terms of working with the Sin of Pride. And there's one specific plant I will be working with, but I'm actually not going to share that in this video. We'll cover that another time. Plant type number 1 that I think really calls up the Sin of Pride to me are labor-intensive, showy flowers that have cult followings. I'm talking about dahlia, lisianthus, ranunculus. If you know, you know. If you don't know, how nice for your pocketbook. And I'm sorry. The second type of plant. Do I need to elaborate more on that? Maybe I do need to elaborate on that. I just don't want to make another 40-minute video. So maybe I will create another video about my love affair of lisianthus and ranunculus and dahlia. Yeah, okay. The second type of plant for working with pride hits a category of plants that I really describe as solar. My favorite resource for if I'm just want to start with correspondences to kind of get the creativity flowing would be the Alchemy Works Materials of Magic website. That is a website for a company that sells plants and seeds and dried herbal materia. It was created by Roth, who is an author now of books like The Sword of Moses and the 13 Witching Herbs. And that company has been purchased by and is now owned by Alex and I think Alexia is the name of his partner. I'm sorry if I'm getting that wrong. I'm so glad they're continuing that work and they're still making the tables and the resources of that website available to the public, because it would have been really easy to sell it instead. I'll include a link to them below, but I love their tables. How much do I love their tables? I don't think that Aleister Crowley's 777 is as relevant anymore because of those tables. And 777 is arguably Crowley's masterwork. So yeah, that may not seem like crazy endorsement to all of you, but I do mean that as a crazy endorsement. And solar plants I really my feelings about solar plants are really influenced by Harold Roth and his way of discussing the way that different plants and the type of plant they are: solar, perennial, annual, perennial, biennial, and their relationship to different kinds of the luminaries, and the way of annuals are solar in their relationship to the sun. I love the way that so many solar flowers have those big showy flowers. They're the flowers go to seed. Um, I love that we engage with those plants by their flower. This beautiful face of the plant. There's going to be someone who tells me, well, the face of the plant isn't the flower, it's the roots, because that's where they get all their nutrients from. And to that kind of person, I'm going to say they're plants and they're not people. So yes, the flower can be their face and their genitals at the same time. Um, that is how they interact with bees and with us. It's how they attract. I'm okay with calling the flower the face and the genitals of a plant. And that makes smelling a flower even more awesome, doesn't it? So yes, that rant aside, I feel like annuals with big showy flowers are perfect for pride. Bonus if they're a companion plant that supports other plants. Bonus if they reseed well, and extra bonus if they're cut and come again. Because what says pride like being there for others and um, being glamorous and noticeable and um, and not getting cut down, but every time receiving a hit, coming back stronger and more abundant, right? So some favorites for mine are in this kind of solar category are marigold, are nasturtiums, which I like because they even have that nice like peppery flavor. And while we often in astrology will talk about the sun as like a luminary, as a plant, as a planet of identity, in traditional astrology, the sun is also has malefic qualities. The sun, if the sun is over, if the sun's light blocks the view of a planet, that planet is compromised. If the sun is directly across in opposition to a planet, that planet is compromised. In traditional astrology, the full moon, where the sun is opposite the moon, that is like not a good election. The full moon is the full moon as a time to do magic follows a different kind of logic, follows a different paradigm. But I like the peppery flavor in nasturtium as reminding me of that quality of the sun. That's ooh, that'll zing, the risk, and the risk of that comes with sun work, the shadow side of it, and as well as pride. That pride, the negative qualities of pride, the blowback that can come from pride being a gateway to the other sins, or like a very slippery slope that you can fall down on and not get back up again. I think that receding quality of those kinds of annuals also reminds us of how pride from one person begets a prideful reaction from others. If one person engages in the sin of pride and narcissism, it puts everyone else into a defensive state. When one person is only thinking about themselves and they have influence, we all have to start thinking about ourselves first. And that's really sad from a community perspective. I think the sunflower is also a great choice for this. Last year, I had a garden full of beautiful branching sunflowers that could be seen from the front, the street in the front. My flowers from the backyard could be seen from the front. And I didn't plant them. They were all there because I think birds shit them out. I don't have any squirrels. It must have been the bird shit. And isn't that awesome? Yeah. And so all in all, they have that solar quality of being a supportive companion, being in service, like an ethical king, but also have the power of being, of overtaking, of receding and overtaking and overwhelming a space, um, in the way that is the pitfall of pride that Christianity so badly wants to avoid. So my third type of plant is a specific one, and it is everyone's favorite nightshade, the tomato. What else did you think I was going to say? Tomatoes also have a huge cult following. They have people really care about their tomatoes. They People have lots of strong opinions about them. Heirlooms, concerns about GMOs, problems with hybridizing, and what that means for like seed viability. People care about being self-sufficient, or care about maybe buying local and like canning all their tomato sauce for the year. That's really, really fun, really interesting, really great technical learning, but also really overwhelming. People um, can grow a lot of tomatoes. I'm like not saying that well. It is easy to start way more tomatoes than you need, and then what do? I don't want to kill my little tomatoes. I plant them all, and then suddenly I'm totally overwhelmed. Some tomatoes are bush varieties, and some are vining, and the vining ones get really tall, long, require pruning. We tend to stake them up, but they're really meant to like crawl on the ground and have the tomatoes, go bad and reseed. That's the function of the plant. We farm them differently than how they would maybe occur in the wild. I don't know if wild tomatoes even exist anymore, right? And tomatoes have all kinds of stories about, being poisonous. Some people poisonous because of the metal plates they were served on. And I mean, that's just a story that we understand now, but botulism is always a concern with canning tomatoes. And tomatoes are like, there are nightshade allergies that people have, and pruning tomatoes can be like inherently uncomfortable. I get a lot of like skin reactions to tomatoes when I'm touching the leaves and working with the leaves in the plant. It doesn't stop me from doing it, because I mean, I'm a gardener, right? I'm a gardener. I'm a mess around and find out kind of magical practitioner. Okay, what's a little wrist burn, But I think that tomato has a wonderful magical opportunity that we because we really indulge in the kind of grandmother culture around tomatoes that we might be missing out on. And I think that remembering it's a nightshade also, when we relax into that, we can see how tomatoes can be an underutilized resource in terms of certain kinds of baneful or protective magics, without having to and that's an option for us, without having to kind of over glamorize the popular banes that are like all over social media right now. And I love those plants, but I think it's really important to have a balanced plant practice. So that's option number 3. And my suggestion for number 4 is going to be less specific. And I wanted to think about what came to mind were certain kinds of fast spreading or invasive plants. I'm thinking like mugwort and wormwood, certain kinds of Artemisia, and other plants release chemicals into the ground to deter other kinds of plants from growing. And that's a huge that's a huge problem where these plants naturalize, because like the native plants can't compete with it. Mugwort is highly esteemed for its like dream capacities. It's used, it's considered like a safe flying ointment option. But I mean, if people look to mugwort for its thujone, I think is the name of the component, the psychoactive component or the effective component of that plant, in in certain quantities, it's a neurotoxin. So, and it's not just in mugwort; it's in lots of other plants, right? But if it's a neurotoxin, then maybe it's not a safe option to use if you're still breastfeeding, or if you like, if you have other concerns with your health, or are like a responsible person in general, right? And not a mess around and find out kind of person. Again, I don't think we need to consume a plant or have it on our bodies or transform a plant to have an effective spirit relationship with it. Another kind of plant I thought works with that fourth category would be the dandelion. I see it a lot in social media right now because it's springtime, and people are really connecting it with things like hope because of that kind of spring emergence, and fortitude because the dandelion grow everywhere. They grow through cracks in the concrete, and it's amazing. And they have really long taproots. So the plant can really survive well, even though you're trying to eliminate it. And the seeds are so widely spreading. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble speaking today, like usual. That it's hard to eradicate. The people who want to have pristine lawns have trouble with it. I find that right now, this time of year, I'm craving greens. I'm craving dandelion and that kind of like bitter flavor. I really just want like a salad, a balsamic salad, really badly right now. And there's something about that bitterness that matches that beautiful, like bright yellow flower that I think is really interesting in terms of working with pride. The deep root, the lasting nature. The roots of dandelion are so bitter that when I first tried harvesting them to try like making tea, I didn't wash my hands properly when making my next dish. Like I said, I am not a master herbalist. I am a person who tries things. So I didn't do a good job like washing my hands, or I just moved the roots before making something. I made some pasta for my daughter and went to taste the noodle I had cooked to make sure it was cooked enough. And it was so nasty. Touching the roots and then touching pasta caused a transference of flavor. And that's wild. Even more wild, if you roast these wickedly bitter roots, they smell like chocolate and are amazing. To me, there's so much transformation and variety in this one plant. It's really interesting to work with. And in terms of pride in particular, that persevering quality reminds me that that there's no such thing as ego death, right? The sense of individuality never goes away. Not like it perseveres. People talking about their ego death are in denial. They're perpetuating their new ego, because there always is one. There's always a sense of self, a sense of individuality, and a sense of self compared to the other. That's not to say that people don't make peace with it and overcome is the wrong word. Make peace with it and expand into a space where there is room for everyone's sense of self working together collectively as one ecosystem. Dandelion has that, and that's amazing. And there's just something about those beautiful sunny little flowers and those tasty little leaves and rosettes that are like really important for our health, and the way that this plant has moved everywhere and actually doesn't compromise, isn't considered invasive, isn't considered to be compromising to native plants. People who pull it up and say it's bad, it's because it's not working with their it's not working with the aesthetic of the garden that they like. Right now, we live in a pro dandelion movement, and I'm here for that. And for those who don't love dandelions, the biggest and weeds, the best strategy, if you can, eat them or use them, because invasives well, how do I say that nicely? In working with plants, it's easy to start to not want to harm them or not want to use them anymore. And it's a big difference between someone who's used to working with plants in terms of transforming materia. They find more ease with using a plant and transforming it into its new form. As a gardener, I found that harder. And so for all the times I've grown, like precious plants like mandrakes, for example, I don't really want to transform it after. I'm happy to spend time. I'm happy to be with that plant the way it is. And I've never encountered wanting to transform a mandrake into an aileron or into a plant familiar that takes hold in the root. I like the plant. But there's something about invasives or invasives or fast spreading native plants. They're very abundant. And there's nothing better than using them to eat, because there's always more. I can eat my goutweed. I can eat my dandelions. I have a lot of mugwort in the garden. It comes up. It's amazing bouquet filler. It's helpful medicinally in other ways when taken responsibly. And those plants, in working with that invasive quality, I think it's a really interesting way of working with pride and mediating pride and the juggling act that comes with navigating that sin. The sin of pride, its virtuous counterpart is considered humility, and I've said it before, I don't agree with that. I think that I'd like to think of humility as a shadow of pride, because humility gets weaponized, and it is weaponized as a standard to use against people. I think that rejoicing and celebrating is the counterpart, is the antidote to pride, and not humility. And in rejoicing and celebrating and honoring, well, what better way to do that than to work with plants, use them responsibly, be generous with them, and be generous with each other. Especially if you're growing wonderful, delightful, expensive, glamorous flowers like dahlia and lisianthus and ranunculus, right? I do hope to share more flowers and plants with you as time comes. I look forward to getting back to you with the specific plant that I've chosen to work with for working with pride. It fits these categories. See you next time.